Oh, Shirley, I had a language question for you while we wait for folks. One of my students asked me about the question dasa, and they were wondering if you ask somebody on its own, dasa, like what? Is that rude in any way?
No, uh, it's because it used like I didn't hear it, I didn't get it.
Mm,
Uh, so, like somebody's carrying on a conversation, you join in and say, you can say, Dasa,
mm,
that, what are you talking about? Kind of thing.
mm.
So,
Okay. And it's okay to say, like, if you join in and you're talking to an elder, that wouldn't be seen as like rude or disrespectful.
yeah,
Okay.
it's okay to uh, say it so they can repeat.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting because um, in our language, when you say uh, "isikuga," you
Hmm.
understand
Hmm.
that in the English language, it's kind of almost like an insult. You know, don't you get it, or
Yeah.
kind of thing. But in Cricket language, it's more like, "Did you get that? What I said, or
Mm,
do you did you get it? What I mean, and things like that." So,
mm,
yeah, yeah, there is a translation um, kind of uh, destroys the real thinking on it, where if you think like an English speaker and you say, "Don't you get it? Don't you understand?" Kind of, it's like uh, talking to a child and
mm,
you're trying to get something across to them. And you say, "Don't you ever get it? Or don't you get it?"
mm,
Yeah, but and in Korean it's different. Um, it's not what is it called in English uh, to uh, make a remark so that your final statement
mm.
is, "Don't you get it?" And uh, in Korean it's saying, "Did you get what I said, or do you understand?" So I say that to my husband. He knows what it means. I
Mm,
always say, "Cool,"
mm.
and I always say, "Siku."
Yeah. That just reminds me that like in a lot of the English speaking spaces I grew up in, it would be embarrassing not to get it or like not to understand or not catch it.
Yeah,
Feel like I have a tendency because of that to try to pretend that I know something or that I get it. I have to like really catch myself. Someone asks me a question, I don't know the answer,
yeah,
really catch myself instead of just trying to make something up, but really be like, not sure about that. I need to ask.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Uh, it's uh, it's never a question that's asked to like if the uh, parent or adult is talking and to ask, "Did you get it?" or uh, to especially when you're talking about history, it's really important to make sure that uh, things are right and said right. So,
Yeah.
uh, but to because of this day and age and talking to young people,
Mm,
there's a tendency to for that to change in the English language. So,
mm. Yeah, especially with Indigenous Peoples Day coming up, I'm starting to talk in my UAA class about colonization and why native languages are needed of revitalization. Like, how come we don't just already know it? And I'll be looking forward to getting your guidance on how to talk about that to students because I want to get the facts correct. And then I also want to talk about it in a way that people can contribute.
I
Yeah.
think one of the things that is overlooked
Mm,
is a study that was done by a couple that came to Alaska to study
mm,
uh, the people and their language, and the time difference in speaking and the pausing is really greatly different,
mm,
where there's hardly a break when somebody's talking. And this is a problem that I still have,
mm,
is somebody's talking and somebody just answers right away and there's a big discussion and my mouth is moving and I want to say something, but I can't get, I feel like I can't get a word in edgewise. So finally, what I do nowadays is just to raise my hand and say, I have something to say when you finish talking,
mm,
because the uh, the pause time for the English speaker is very, very, very close.
mm,
Where in speaking, and this is something when I started teaching high school, is the teachers said the native students never say anything. Well, yeah, because you, can, you don't get to uh, pause long enough for them to interject what they know. So
mm,
they keep quiet. I mean, it's so useless.
mm,
Keep quiet and don't bother. That's what happens.
mm,
I didn't find that to be a problem when I was teaching,
mm.
just because the pause time was really fit in with what they're thinking and doing, speaking.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's important. Something that happened with the introduction of English speakers that came uh, is, is something that they think because we don't say anything,
Mm,
we're not involved or we're not interested or something.
mm.
But it actually has to do with the pastime.
Yeah.
That we could participate more if they would allow allow the time, and that's hard to do if you're a speaker.
Mm.
Uh, Tough luck if you're talking to somebody from New York.
Yeah. Oh, hey, it looks like Edna made it. Hi, Edna.
Uh,
Good to see you again.
Hi, yeah, I'm here. It
yeah,
took me a little bit to figure out um, how to sign in, and then I just looked at the message that you sent me, and I said, "Oh, there it is, right there." And
Mm.
then I'd also gotten it from Shirley, so I'm here.
Yeah. That's awesome. I'm glad you made it.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for joining us today.
sure, I'm happy to be here.
For everybody else in class today, what we're gonna do is hear from Edna Lamble. She's our guest presenter today. She's offered to talk about modern day practices. And then, depending on how long your talk is, Edna, we have things lined up for afterwards, but no pressure to fill the time, but also don't feel like you have to rush. Uh, but I just wanted to introduce, before we get started, were there any questions or comments from the class on anything we've covered so far, or any language questions you have? When you all were coming in, we just were having a discussion about whether or not it's rude to say certain things, and so we'll go over those. They were dasa for what is it, and yisukuge or do you understand some of the nuances, the cultural nuances between Tlingit culture and the, I don't know what you would say, European American culture, or that these two phrases are not seen as rude. They just affirm communication. Well, I want to introduce Edna to you all. Edna Lanebol is Duckdane Tan from Huna on her mother's side, and she's also the paternal aunt or the aunt of Shachsani Keek, Shirley Kendall. So welcome, Edna. I'll hand over the mic to you.
Okay. Where am I? There I am. Okay. Yes, I'm glad to be here. I think this came about because I was talking with Shirley Kendall, Katsani Keat, who is a very good friend, and we worked together for about 50 years, I think. Back in the 70s, we started working together in the Anchorage School District, and so her husband is Duck Danton also. So that's how our relationship is. Shirley is Kagwantan, and my grandfather was Kagwantan. So there's connections, cultural connections that way, but not more importantly, but also because we have been very close friends for 50 years. I'm Shirley has so much knowledge. She has graduate degrees from Harvard and also grew up very traditional. So she's able, I think, to connect the two of them. So you folks are lucky to have her in this class. I wanted to introduce myself. My Tlingit name is Katyet, and the name is was passed down. It was my grandmother's mother's name. And so when I was growing up, my grandma would call me mom, and I'd wonder what the heck, she's, so much older than I am, and yet she's calling me mom. But I found out that it was because I was her mom, because I had her name. I didn't grow up. My family comes from Huna, but I didn't grow up there. I grew up in Juneau, born and raised in Juneau. Went to the Juneau schools, and so I was more of a urban Tlingit. You'll probably hear my husband in the background. He likes to interject things. Don't pay any attention to him. I told him he had to stay out of here for an hour, and obviously it's only been came back too early. It's only been 10 minutes, so go back in the other room. So anyhow, I was born and raised in Juneau, went to school there, and spent summers at Excursion Inlet, which is a fish camp and a cannery outside of Juneau. My knowledge of Kuis is very limited. As children, we didn't participate in them, and I don't know if other children did or not back in the 50s and even into the early 60s. I don't know if kids were at the Kuis or not. My first personal introduction was when after my grandmother died, we had her Kui in the late 70s. I wasn't sure what was going on because I didn't prepare. I don't know if there was anything written about them or not, but I didn't know what was going on. One example I remember, I'll never forget, is that we were serving our guests, and there were 2 or 3 older gentlemen who were sitting on the side. So I was offering them food, and they said no, and I said no. Why? It's just, we're ravens also. You can't be feeding us. You have to be feeding our guests, the eagles. I said, okay. And I knew we were supposed to feed the eagles, but I didn't know that they were ravens. So I figured they were eagles. One of the things that I've noticed at later Kuis that I went to, participated in either as a guest or as a host, was that scarves were given to the guests, and they were a certain color, and the hosts had scarves, but they were a certain color. So you're able to distinguish between guests and hosts. So that, I think, really helped those of us those of us who weren't from the village and didn't know the people, so didn't know what clan they were. That I think was really helpful. One of the things that I remember from the earlier cruise that I attended, the one my grandma and then a few other folks around that time, is that there was a lot of Tlingit spoken, a lot. And people were leaning over asking their neighbors what they say, what did they say? Much of the cooies were done in Tlingit. And so if you didn't understand the language and then you didn't know what the procedure was, because there's a program that many people use this, but the series of events that happen. So now most of the cooies is done in English. There are a few people who speak Tlingit and who make their presentation or participate in their way, but most of it is done in English now. After that experience with my grandma's cooie, didn't have any I didn't participate in any because by then I was living here in Anchorage and raising my family, and I couldn't go down. They were in the late fall and on the weekend. But I think maybe in the early 90s, my mom's sister passed away, and so I went to her cooie. And actually before that, my cousin, one of her sons passed away, and we went to his cooie. So that was in the 80s and early 90s. But I didn't have a very, very prominent role in any of those. I did what I could. My cousin's, my aunt would call me over and say, "Give this to so and so, give this to so and so," and I said, "Okay, where are they?" And she kind of point them out so I would know and go to the right person. But she was using me as a runner, and that was much of my participation. My mom passed away in 1997, and we had her cooie in the next year, 1998. We did a lot of planning. I have a sister who lives in Hoona, and so she had attended many of them. So she was like almost my teacher and trying to figure out, what do we have to do? Who do we count on? What do we do? All of that. So that was kind of my real introduction to participating in a cooie. There is a specific program that those cooies that I have attended pretty much follow, and both those in Hoona and the ones that I participated in Juneau. Juneau ones were when I was a guest. Hoona ones were basically when I was a host, with the exception of my uncles. It was pretty neat how our family did that, and I'm not sure how others do. We had my mom's cooie one weekend, and then the following weekend was my uncle's, and my uncle was married to my mom's sister, so my uncle was Eagle. So in the first one, I was a host, and then the next weekend we sat and we were the guests. So it was definitely a how should I say it? It was definitely a planned event like that, so we could, those of us who came from far away could attend. One of my kids was able to stay because he was still in elementary school, so I just kept him out. But my other three and my niece and nephew were older, and they had to get back to school, so they came for our mom's cooie, but then they had to leave and couldn't stay for the other one. So they haven't really seen what it's like to be a guest, and they're always wondering, when are we going to be the guest? But it's something that they have to experience, but they haven't yet. So then anyhow, we had my mom's cooie. We had a program. We had what we had to do, the planning took, most of the year. We had to plan the meals. We had who was going to do what. But the first thing was we had to decide who our Nakani was going to be. And the Nakani is the opposite, a close relative, opposite. So in our case, it would be an eagle. We'd have to select who would be kind of like the master of ceremonies. My understanding is that we weren't supposed to talk to our our guests, particularly during the first part of it. We have to talk to our Nakani and say, we need this, we need you to tell so and so, and so they would go and talk to the person we needed, and that was one of the things that's hard to do. I think hard to do. And Connie is also the person who invites. You tell them who to invite to the kuik, and make sure that those people get the invitation. There's a booklet that Sea Alaska Heritage put out, part of their Box of Knowledge series. And this one is Southeast Alaska Native Cultural Memorial Ceremonies Manual.
Oh.
And it's a short, 50 pages. It was written, or probably through meetings, we talked about what they wanted in there. And then Sea Alaska SHI staff then edited and then put it together. But I was going over it the other day. It's a $10 book. You can get it from Sea Alaska Heritage.
Cool.
And Southeast Alaska Native Cultural Memorial Ceremonies Manual. If anybody wants to, I'm sure there are folks in the class who have been to a number of creeks, and so they can probably chime in and talk about their experiences. But I'd like to first just go through this and comment on the program that they set up, because there's a framework, and that, let me see where it starts, that these folks, these elders have shared with their experiences. So there's a planning and preparation, talks about that, what you need to do, establish the date, identify guests, select the Nakani, select the memorial songs and happy songs, identify special events of the ceremony. So that's part of the planning. I know that there's one clan that has like a notebook that they have, and so they have all of the information that they need to fill in the blanks, kind of, as they've had their kuiks over a number of years. They know what they have to do, and they just pull out that book and they say, okay, this is da, 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 da. So it's others are not real familiar how to prepare, and so I think this is really helpful. You need to have, I think what's really important is to make sure that you have elders involved so they can carry on the knowledge that they have, especially if the kuiks are being done now by younger people. So anyhow, that's my 2 cents there. There's selection of Nakani, there's a framework, and it actually welcome and application of symbols of mourning. I remember we sponsored a kuik in November in Huna, Daktainton. And because there hadn't been any, because of the pandemic, people were gathering. Instead of one family doing a kuik, there might be 2 or 3 doing it together and trying to make up for lost time, I guess. So you have to be kind of careful on who's going to do what. And one of the things is from the framework, this thing here talks about the welcome and application of symbols of mourning. So the person welcomes the guests, and then you have the at that is in the front, laid out on tables. Okay, so this is, I'm going to put in a caveat here. This is my experience. There may be, I'm sure there are others who have different experiences, but I think basically you lay out you ask the other side to help you prepare. They help you put on your regalia. You have a black headband, cloth headband that they put on you, and this is in preparation for the morning, the grieving part. They mark your face with black marks, and then once that all is done, and that's when in our case, all the Dakdaintan who are in attendance come up and they gather together, and that is done with them, to them. And then there are a series of 4 mourning songs, cry songs, and it's pretty darn sad, those songs, and goes on for a while. The other, I'm trying to remember the sequence now. The other clan, the opposites, the eagles, each clan would come up individually, each clan, and would offer their condolences in speeches or a speech, and are basically telling the hosts that they are there to gather their tears, and they are representing their ancestors in doing this. So each clan came forward to do that. And then we had our spokesperson gave a response, and that could take several hours. Not his response, but that whole sequence. And then after that's done, there are a couple of other things they do. The sounding, it's over, the grieving is over, and they turn to the happy times. And so the regalia is taken off and put away. The faces are cleaned. The black headbands are taken off, and then it switches to the happy time. And there's a lot going on there. There's the fire dishes. You have a lot of, or if you have fire dishes set aside with names on them, and you're going to hand them out, but you do one fire dish. The Eagles representatives hold it up, and all the names of our ancestors who have passed are called out, and that is signifying that this food is going not only to them but to the Eagles who are there. So they have the fire dish, and then they take, somebody is asked to take it outside and burn it, or yeah, basically to burn it. And then the fire dishes are handed out to people who call out their name, they raise their hand, say, "I'm here." Somebody takes them the dish, and that could go on for a while. Oh, I better find my spot in the book, because I've by then it's after midnight. The party has started at noon. It's after midnight, and then things start moving. You do the meals. Maybe there's a meal earlier in the evening. We had 3 different meals. The first one was, in our case, was a meal that the person that we are having this for liked. So it could be hamburgers. It could be, I've known that some Kuwait people have flown in Kentucky Fried Chicken, and they had that as one of the meals. The second meal is usually a traditional meal where you have fish and rice and potatoes and herring eggs. And when we were this is how little I knew. When we were planning the meals it was either my mother's kuich, or it was even at my cousin's kuwik later in 2012. Our family leader passed away in 2011, and we had his kuwik in 2012. We're talking about that second meal, and I said, how about seaweed soup? And my sister said very gently to me, said, we shouldn't have that because when a person passes away, then we don't have seaweed for a while, because we're afraid then that we will also slide away because it's down on, the seaweed's down on the beach and slippery, that we will also pass away. And she said, there's always somebody passing away, so we don't want to have the seaweed soup as part of the meal, but we could give the dried seaweed in little bags and give it to people as part of either the handout or put them in the fire bowls or not. But that's kind of, I should have known that, but I didn't. And it's something that I won't forget. But there are certain things, you can have and you can't have. So anyhow, the second meal is more traditional. If we're lucky to have dry fish, then we have dry fish. We have boiled fish, maybe. Anyhow, it's a lot. And during dispersed throughout our giving things away, if you have canned goods, then you hand it out, and you always start in the front and hand out to the guests jars of jars of fish, fresh fish, or not frozen, but smoked fish, soda pop. Oh my goodness, there were cases and cases of soda pop and given away, and water. We were, my sisters and I were more of that. I'm not going to get any soda pop. I'm going to buy water, bottled water, and give that away.
Yeah.
So anyhow, whatever you want to give away, then you give away. And like I said, you pass them out to the people. And it's always start in the front, or where the honored guests and the elders are seated. And I didn't mention men on one side, women on the other. They don't sit together. So, yeah. And sometimes the people in the back obviously they don't get a lot of the stuff that's handed out. Some people believe that whenever you give out something new, then you start in the front. And I think about those poor people in the back who've been sitting there for hours. And I said, oh, if you have 10 cases of fish, then start in the front, and then get another box and give out where you left out, type of thing. But I don't know.
Yeah.
So fruit bowls are fun. At some point, they have bowls, and they have a lot of fruit: apples, oranges, banana, other things. And you look either you have a list of people you want to give it to, or you look in the audience and you see somebody who hasn't got one yet, and you call out their name, and somebody runs the fruit dish to those people, and they're all eagerly waiting. So it gives it to the person, and everybody around them kind of grabs it, and then they hold up the dish, and they come and get it and then fill it up. Usually there are 5 or 6 dishes going around at one time. And so it's really kind of hectic and fun time. There's some photos in this booklet that show that aspect. There's a third meal. So this one here has the second meal, and then a distribution of berries. You have that's also a great part. You have a big tub, and you have berries and fruit, canned fruit goods. I mean, open. It's all mixed together, and you they bring it in and start distributing. People bring Ziploc bags, or they bring little containers with covers and everything, and they go. You get the berries. You can eat them there. Some people eat, and others eat some there and then take it home. But it's just a pretty cool thing. All during the leading up to the whole thing in the hall, you'll see people approaching the hosts and giving them money, $2, $5, $10, and you have to keep track of who's giving you the money, because when it's time to turn it in and put it into the money dish, you go up front and you read your list. So I got this $5 from so and so, and $10 from so and so, and $2 from so and so. So the guests are helping you by giving you that money to put into the money bowl, and their names are called out. And then when the money is distributed, then the guests or the host decide who's going to get how much and for what. Like, you have to pay the grave diggers, you have to pay the night watch people who had watched the body. You have to pay all these different the no, I forget.
Grave digger.
Yeah,
Yeah, the grave diggers.
the grave diggers and the night watch who sit in the hall with the body, the pallbearers, the cooks. You know, there's really a whole list of folks, and so once the money is turned in, then your money counters have the job of counting everything. Or they also, when the money is turned in, when you say the names, then the money counters keep track of that, and so they can know who has distributed or who has given the money. And then they that takes, oh, I don't know how many hours that took. Lots and lots of time. The witnesses who are there sit and it's a kind of a calming time. But that's also when people are adopted. You might have somebody who is married into your family, and you want to adopt them so that if they are not in a clan, you adopt them. There are people who have helped you all through the years, and you want to recognize them by adopting them. Lots of younger people who may not be in a clan because it's maybe it's their father who's Tlingit and their mother is not. And then somebody will have them adopted. There's a little bit of, I shouldn't say controversy, a little bit of discussion about, should a person have to go through this would be a legal adoption in the Tlingit way, adopted at a party. Should they have to be adopted there if one of their parents is Tlingit and the other one isn't? And I don't know, Shirley, what you have any ideas about that, or can they just be announced that these are their Tlingit names? I don't know. You're the one who's maybe knows more about that than me. I think maybe it's just up to the clan to decide how they want to handle that. If the child's mother is a Tlingit, then they're Tlingit. They have a name, they have a clan, and maybe they are introduced if that's their first party. So one of the things that has to happen that I remember is because these parties, many of them go until daybreak or before or after, or knowing when the ferry's coming in. So you can catch the ferry back out on Sunday morning. This starts on Saturday. Sunday morning, the ferry's coming in at 6. You got to be done for the people. But there is a song that when it's getting to be daylight, then there's a song, and I can't remember what they're called, but there's a song that is done. So we see third meal. Before the raven sounds, the raven spirit or eagle spirit song. And it says, if it appears that the party will continue through daybreak, it may be interrupted by the guest clans who will sing their spirit song to preclude any harm or bad luck for members of the host clan. A grandchild of the host family or a guest member from the opposite clan can also be called to do a chant. Some parties have 2 chants, one done by the host and another done by the guests. So that could, at some point when things are going, getting to be that time, then that definitely has to be done. So this goes on. Let's see. Before that, money bowl. Let's see. Name giving ceremony. Invitation, blanket distribution. Toward the end, the host clan honors and pays those of the opposite side who supported them in their time of loss and who worked during the funeral as pallbearers, honorary pallbearers, night watchers, remained with the casket through the night until the first cry of the raven in the morning. Grave diggers, helpers in placing the cement and headstone at the burial site, speakers at the funeral. So there are piles and piles of blankets, and those are given to certain people. There's a order of how things are given out. There's the canned goods and the native foods. There's lots of socks, and then the blankets. Those are to help for people to stay warm. And this is speaking about the ancestors. When you give to the opposite, then you're giving to the ancestors, your ancestors, and your. I always wondered why are you giving out so many socks? Why are you giving out so many socks? And that's to keep them warm. And blankets are to keep them warm. So there's all of these things are symbolic, and they all go back to when you're giving it to your host, then you are giving it to your ancestors. So when you feed your host, you're feeding your ancestors. Oh. And then you go and catch the ferry if you don't live in the town. If you don't live in Una, you go and catch the ferry, and everyone dances out, shakes hands. It's all happy and take all their goods that they've received and go back to the other world. Yeah, so that's it. Wow. If you have questions or if you want to add anything, I'm not an expert. I'm just telling you what I saw, both as a host and as a guest, and how these things have carried on for a long time, and hopefully they will continue. There's 4 weekends in October, and there are 4 parties. One each weekend. This next week, Duck Danton House is giving a party. Next week is a might be a Shunga Katie. No, it's not Shunga Katie. It's I won't say who it is, but it's an eagle, and then probably a raven, and then an eagle party. So if somebody has a time and they want to spend the month in Huna, it's something to behold. But I don't think I'll make it down for any of them.
Yeah. So. Wow, what an awesome comprehensive explanation of the Ku'ik. I'm hearing a lot of this stuff for the first time. So
I'm a big beginner at it, and sometimes get things mixed up. But as I go to, like we had one in November of last year for two of my cousins who passed, and there were two other families who participated in that same. So we had to be careful what we did, kind of, but we just kind of did what we knew.
Mm.
And then in December, I went to Juneau for an Eagle party. That one was a Shungukati party. And I went there because the one of the elders is a close friend. We grew up together, and so I went down for that, and things are pretty similar. Yeah, they were pretty similar in those two. The steps were there. They may not have been in the same sequence, but the major ones were there. So,
There's
yeah.
a question in the chat. I think a few of our students, well, a lot of us are learning to reconnect with our roots and wanting to start to participate. So the question in the chat was, do you have to be officially invited in order to attend a Ko'ik?
Um, it depends. It depends. There are some. I've seen a couple for this fall that said invited guests. So that might be that you have to be. It might be that they want to make sure that those people are there. So they invite them. And those that I've been to in Huna, it's pretty much understood that all of like in our case, all of the Eagles are invited to come. We don't call everyone, but there are certain people that you call, make sure like the honored guests. Um, there were a couple of parties that I heard were invited guests, and it's just almost like, oh, there are only certain people who will be there.
So
Yeah, what
if if your clan is giving the party, you don't have to be invited. You join in and say, "What can I do to help?"
yeah.
Yeah. I when I gave my presentation, I forgot to mention the fire dishes. In the traditional way, they would prepare the fire dish and call out the names on the dish, and all the things that were in the dish were burnable, able to burn it. And they would just dump it in the fire and let it burn, then get another dish for the same purpose. But today, they only have one dish that they burn, and the rest is when I think we did it in our family that you fill up the bowl with all kinds of different things, and we covered it with saran wrap, and then called out the names, and then the bowl was given to either a group or to everybody help themselves in that area, or to a specific person. And I'm glad you mentioned about the adoption, because that was, of course, in my day, there wasn't a lot of adoption, but there was new names that were given. So a child receives a name when they're born, but additional names, you have to have ceremony. And that's the time the chiefs decide who or what family is going to be given special new names. And they bring them out after the money bowl is full. And at that time, the money was all silver. So I remember looking at the bowl, so full of silver, those giant bowls that they had.
Yeah.
Then they brought us out in front of them, and they apparently notified the family early, because I remember I had to dress up for. Um, but before they finally got to the ceremony, I fell asleep, and my mom had to quickly wake me up, and the pretty bow that she put in my hair kept drooping down when I got up and the people because I was sleeping on it before. I do remember that. So
I forgot to mention the money bowls. The hosts selected 2 or 3 people who would be the money counters, and they would sit in the front with the bowl or bowls, and people would line up to turn in their money, and the money counters would be counting the money and stacking them and everything, and then putting it in the bowl. So they would write down who gave the money and how much, and then they put it in the bowl. This, because I mentioned, because of the pandemic, there weren't parties for a couple, 3 years, and now that they're having them, they're sometimes families or houses even go together on a party, and there is sometimes a question of, well, is there going to be one bowl, or is each family going to have their own bowl, put the money in, and then they decide who gets it, or so could get testy.
yeah.
I I see another question in the chat. Who is chosen to be a Nakani and who chooses will be the Nakani?
I think that the family that is hosting the kui decides on who the Nakani is, and they ask that person to be the Nakani. It is obviously a member of the opposite, and from what I've read, traditionally, it's usually somebody who's a very close relative. It's an in-law. I don't know if Nakani means in-law, but
Brother-in-law. Brother-in-law.
brother-in-law. Yeah. My sisters and I were trying to remember who we had selected to be the Nakani for our moms. I couldn't remember. I think our other sister who lives there and who would know. So I need to find out, because like I said, I don't remember.
Cool. Another question in the chat. I know we just have 5 minutes left. Will naming be for both Eagle and Raven sides, or just the hosting side will hold a naming ceremony?
It's the
Hosting. The hosting.
yeah, the hosting. The hosting side. So those folks at our Kuik and Huna for the Duckdane Town, it was the Duckdane Towns who brought people into their family. And the party that I went to in Juneau with the Shungri brought people into their families.
Okay. Okay, that's a good way to remember it. I'm getting all these messages in my private chat, but somebody just wanted me to share. I love this special guest learning class information. Very much appreciated. Gonaftish.
Yep. Sheesh.
Another question in the chat. Is it the whole clan who plans and hosts, or the family plans and the clan pitches in once plans are made?
I think it's the family, because there are different houses. It might be a house, so the family, immediate family, and then extended family, and the once I think people know that if it's your clan that's hosting the party, then you're not obligated, but you are more than welcome to participate as helpers. And so you'll see at a party that there will be folks who aren't related to that particular family, but they're the same clan, and so they go in and help. what can I do to help? Hand out food, hand out party dish or fire bowls, hand out fruit bowls, and they just take orders from whoever knows what to do, and then they go and they do it.
And I know that the young men of that clan helps to carry the heavy stuff, and the girls go along with them to hand out the things that are too heavy for them to carry and hand out at the same time. So it does involve all the young people of that clan.
Buenas noches.
Those are wonderful questions.
They
Thank
are, yeah. Time really went by. It's almost 1 o'clock.
I know people have more questions too, and we gotta end at 1, but we can continue this conversation. Edma, it's so nice having you, and I think I speak for everybody when I say how much we appreciate what you've shared with us today. Knowing how to grieve for our families is so important to our survival, and it's embedded in our cultures. And so just wanted to say Atling Gonaltish for sharing with us.
Like I said, I don't know, if these are the same types of things that other families do or other clans do, but the basics are there. There might be a little bit of deviation, but the basics are there, and what we need to do to one grieve for the last time for our past, bring our ancestors back so that they're there with us while we're doing this, and thank and pay back those host people who helped us during our immediate time of grief, but also has helped throughout the year, help us, get through this. So those are basics, I think, that are with all of us.
It's wonderful how everything was scrunched together, and because in my day they would have the memorial party first, and 2 or 3 days of that, cry songs and some dancing and talking. And then they go to the happy time with that. So they do, it sounds like they really cover everything
Mm-hmm.
in that new method.
Yeah, it's I think the party that we had in Huna in November last year started around noon. There was a catamaran and the ferry, um, and a lot of it, the timing fits into that schedule. You know what time the ferry's coming in. You know what time it's going to leave the next morning, and you know that people are needing to catch that. So if things get rushed toward the end, then they get rushed toward the end. But it all gets done. It all gets done. The ferry may be leaving at 9 in the morning, so you got to finish by 8 so people can get down there. And if it starts at noon, then it's pretty close to 24 hours. Pretty close to 24 hours.
Wow.
Yeah.
So cool. I took notes while Edna was talking today, everybody, and I put the link to the slides with the notes in the chat if you want to review them. I also added the link of the book that she shared that's available on the Sealaska Heritage website store. Yeah, just wanted to say.
And if you're in Juneau, you can go in and buy the book for $10 and avoid the mailing fee. And they always add the mailing fee to whatever you buy from them online. So
Yeah.
they have about 4 different copies or 4 different books on different topics. So it's really it's concise. There's one that's on not names, but clan names and symbols, and it doesn't have all the clans, but there are maybe 5 there's talks about how they got their clan name and stuff like that. So ours is in there, so that's why I bought it when I was down there the last time, so I can say, find out, okay, why are we ducking black-legged kittiwakes when my grandma was alive, we were the seagulls. So now we're the black-legged kittiwakes because a certain type of seagull, but I'm still a seagull. And talks about the seagull cry, which is really amazing. So anyhow.
Yeah, and a lot of fun when
Mhm.
in the parties.
Yeah, the seagull women go up and give the cry, and basically what it was is they're when people are in sorrow, they take them out to a certain place and where there's seagull rookery, and the down falls on the people, and you hear the noise of the seagull, and it brings peace and calming to the folks who are grieving. So we do that cry at the duck town parties that seagull women do, and now I know why. You have to go collect some seagull down so we can throw it over the crowd next time. So things you learn. Okay. Thank you.
We host this class every Tuesday, Thursday, same time, so feel free to join us anytime.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.